Live. So I don't really keep live streams published because their improvisational nature often leads to grief. But I thought I would make one tonight as it's quite late and I'm not sleeping. I'm currently uploading a video titled Finding the God Beyond Doctrine. So I just thought I would title this um, Finding God Beyond God. And it's really a comment on the metaphorical and poetic language of religion, but also a comment on how we can become so entangled in doctrinal studies that we entrap ourselves in philosophy and in a sort of horizontal pursuit that really just leads to heartache and a sort of uh, sadness because I don't think it provides the fulfillment. It doesn't satisfy the purpose and the meaning that we have within us that calls out to everyone, to everyone, I would say. Yeah. And when people find themselves in a point of existential grief, I really believe it's because they have not had that vertical calling, that well, just that initiative to raise their chins in divine expectation, to allow themselves to commune with God. And I guess what this video I'm uploading is suggesting is that we all need to take note of the mystical and experiential approach. I think it's foundational. I think it's very, very important. And I think it casts away the clouds. It dissolves those clouds that cast shadows on us. And I think there's a lot of grief can come from uh, constantly debating over the correct way to interpret things. Um, and as an example, uh, in my own personal life of relying, it's just well, just to say it's much more important and practical and significant to have relationship with God than it is anything else, to be honest, because you can't really bring doctrine to bear on all of life's problems because some of the things that doctrines describe are not useful in everyday life. Take, for instance, preterism or futurism. None of these things can be brought to bear on the problems of life. Like my schizophrenic brother, it doesn't help me to think, oh, my brother is schizophrenic and he wants to kill his family. But you know what? Jesus returned in 70 AD. What? Well, that doesn't help. So that's why I'm advocating experiential and the mystical experience that is knowledge from God, that is communicating with God on that vertical plane and escaping the trap of philosophy. Because if I'm in communication with God, if I have the spirit alive within me, then I am much more nimble on my feet. I am much more able to navigate this life. Um, and just actually using that as a modus operandi, using that as a vehicle. Now, as I explain in this video, um, I really don't have a heart right now for dating or anything like this. But I was staying with some friends for a few days, and they suggested that I wish I could show you some funny clips that they made for this dating profile. One of them is just a picture of me with a psycho stare that says, "I will not murder you at all." But that wasn't one they used in the profile. Anyway, it turned out that I got these 3 dates over the course of this week. Um, but I didn't have any romantic. There was no romantic subtext from me, at least. I had no inclination towards any kind of entanglements like that. But I was very interested in meeting with people because I do have a genuine uh, appreciation of people. I love that everyone's been through something. Everyone's been touched by tragedy and knows happiness. And it doesn't matter if they can't communicate that in the most poetic verse and prose. It doesn't matter if it's not as colorful as a Kandinsky, all that matters to me is that there is that comic relief, that there is um, that sort of punctuation of humor in there. I love that. But just that spirit of transparency and kindness, because if you ask me what makes an interesting person, it's truth and honesty. And that's why Jesus Christ is the most interesting person you can know, because he is truth. And that to me is just so interesting. And that was what was shocking about these experiences, because I met these strangers under this contrived artificial meetup, you know? It's not like anything I've ever done. I've usually met people in more organic ways, but using a dating website, it's very unnatural. But there you go, you know? So I sat down with these people, and they were very beautiful people. They're very successful people. Um, I think, yeah, two of them were Scottish, and one of them was uh, Italian, half German, full on Nazi. Like they were, no, they were Italian German, and they'd lived in um, Ireland for 7 years. So she had an Irish accent. It was such an interesting mix, and she was a stand-up comedian and a accountant, and she'd lived in Chicago and LA and all these things, and very fascinating character. But after every one of these dates, I was given a text asking me if I'd like to come out again. But I didn't I don't really have that inclination towards doing it again. But I did it again today, and I'll tell you what happened there. Because in the first instance, there was just that beautifulness to it all. Like, it was just so lovely, because I wasn't letting any kind of lust motivate me. I wasn't allowing myself to be taken over by thoughts of, oh yeah, ladies and stuff. My mind just wasn't there. I wasn't operating on that frame of mind at all. I was operating on, people are wonderful creations of God, and I want to communicate with them and see what they have to say. And the company of women is delightful, so that made it easier. But also just the fact that it was a bit novel and strange. Anyways, it was lovely to see these people just so disarmed, and I think it genuinely was that spirit of God that I was using as a modus operandi. Now you could say, "Oh, were you really using it for that? Was that real?" I think it was. Like, if I had to question myself, like, I was genuinely interested in knowing these people, and the things that they would come out with, the depth, and then the hearty laughs. It was just so enriching as an experience, and I could walk away with that and think, "Oh, I'm so cool, man. Like, that just worked out and I got all these dates." But I didn't walk away with that, because I knew that that spirit uh, that would act in that way wouldn't be from God, and that wasn't the way I felt anyway. I felt like I'd genuinely communicated with some people here. And this is quite a mundane way of operating in any kind of good spirit. But I went on a second date tonight, and it just wasn't the same. It wasn't the same at all. The chemistry was all but gone, and it was just two strangers awkwardly meeting up. Now, I don't know if it was so awkward. Personally, I didn't feel awkward at all. I just felt extremely tired, like I didn't want to be there, but I had to because of the social obligation of the time and the date and all that. So we went to Glasgow, and we went around some different. Like, I took her to all the nice places, but we didn't. I didn't get her anything there. Like, I think the plan was I was going to get her dinner, but I ended up just giving her a tour. And yeah, no. At one point, she told me she believed in mermaids, and that's when I knew I would never find love. Not through this anyway. Um, no, it was just such a strange conversation, because we're talking about folklore and about all the legendary creatures of Scotland, and she just came out with mermaids, and, like, mermaids could actually be a thing. Mermaids are real, and she wasn't being ironic. She wasn't being sarcastic or funny. She meant mermaids are real. And I just, I think I don't know, like, I don't know that mermaids are not real, okay? I don't know that. I cannot come out. I'm not saying it on YouTube, okay? I'm not. This is not that channel. I'm not the mermaid debate settler, okay? That's an old channel. But it just kind of made me think, is this someone that's on the same wavelength with me? Because I'm just not there. I'm not on the wavelength where I'm entertaining the notion of mermaids. Anyway, it just seems absurd. Could it be? I don't know. Maybe. maybe. I can't exclude it, but it was just a bit strange. And she had a lot on in her life too that I don't know if I'd be equipped to handle that given my present circumstance with my older brother. And that's something I speak about in this video too. You know, my older brother had moved me, or I had rather been moved to anger, I suppose you could say, as a result of his paranoid schizophrenia and how it expresses itself, you know, making enemies of his loved ones, of the very ones that he depends upon. Could you think of a more wicked evil? Could you think of a more demonic oppression than that? Because my older brother doesn't really have anyone in his life, and the only people that he has in his life, this thing is telling him to treat those people, uh, you know, as enemies, as people that are working against him. So there's a real battle going on in my brother's heart, and it's something I'm praying over. It's something I brought up at the meeting when I went to see this uh, Australian Kiwi, Mark Hemans, from down under. Anyway, it's something that I've been thinking about and been sharing with people, and it's not an easy situation. And the thing to always remember is that it's not really my brother, because I know my brother's mentality and I know his sort of loyalty to family, and I know that he would never want to bring harm upon those that he loves. He's the kind of person that would say, if he had the clarity of mind, do whatever it takes, make sure I never bring harm to you, you know, but he just doesn't have the presence of mind to communicate that kind of sentiment. So it's really up to us, and it's just a wee shame because I thought he was coming round. Like he got this computer made up for me and everything like that. He was being very kind and generous, and now it's as if he's completely forgotten the purpose of it all. Like I had helped him with some studies, and he said that he was indebted to me, and he thought he would make me a nice computer. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's pretty slow. It takes a while to load up. I'm going to open this. I don't know anything about this computer. I feel like if I opened it up, I would just make it worse. You know, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, certainly the main points of this video I'm uploading are just that, not to get so caught up in the doctrines that divide us, and instead to focus on that spirit that brings us together. You know, there's a scripture that's often touted around. You will know them by their fruits, and it's from Matthew 7, verse 16. And in Matthew 7, verse 15, there's a specific context there, and I don't know if you can find this expression used outside of Matthew 7, 16. In its context, he's talking about false prophets, and he says, "Beware of false prophets who come in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You will know them by their fruits." You know, a good tree bears good fruit, and a bad tree bears bad fruit, and a good tree doesn't bear bad fruit, and a bad tree doesn't bear good fruit. The Jews were very clear in the expression. They didn't want to leave anything to doubt, just in case you're unsure. That's how it is. I love that. It's very crystal clear and it's very simple, you know. And I think there's a generality. I mean, you can apply that generally, but specifically in the context, he's talking about those false prophets, you know, and maybe the nature of the prophecy, perhaps. Am I going out on a limb here? Um, and it just, I don't know. Like again, it would be. I do kind of go tangential. I always do when I'm making a video, and I'm gonna completely undermine the point of this video if I start getting into doctrine. But if we consider Jesus to be a prophet and we listen to some of the prophetic utterances that are recorded in the New Testament, then it seems clear to me that my doctrine is completely correct, and you would be insane to question it. No, that's not right, but I'm going with it. Let's see. I've been listening to a bit of Gary Ameralt, tent maker YouTube, and David Bentley Hart concerning universalism. I really like their views. Have you heard of them? Ah, oh, thank you, and thank you for um, your care for my brother. You know, the main issue I think with schizophrenia is if you can accept the fact that you have schizophrenia, then you are doing really, really well. My brother's problem is that he cannot accept that he has it. Any attempt to persuade him that he does is just the conspirators making a move against him in this game of chess. He hasn't quite accepted the fact yet that he has a problem, and it's difficult to deal with because it would be easier if he was someone that was quite petite that you could just like subdue and get them in a net and just tell them you have, just poke them with a pointy stick and tell them you have this illness, accept it. No, it's never going to work. I don't recommend that. That's not good psychology. Don't do it. But aye, no, if he can accept it, that'd be great. Aye, universalism, you know. I think there's a problem in Christianity there, a heaven and hell dichotomy that I think has warped our perception of the gospel. You know, it's this idea that you're either moving towards hell or you're moving towards heaven. And I think we've abused these concepts and uh, made our own mythology about them, you know? Like seeing hell as this physical place and heaven as this physical place, and this idea of eternal conscious torment, and then this other idea of eternal bliss in a place called heaven. And it's not to say that these two ideas are completely incorrect. I'm just saying they're wrong, but they're not all the way wrong. They're just a bit wrong. You know, for instance, there's plenty of people now talking about the idea of hell and how it's come from descriptions of a place called Gehenna, which was outside of Jerusalem and notorious as a burning pit of all the mess and rubbish of the city. And so the connotations there are that if you do not produce good fruit, if you're not aligning yourself with the spirit, then all of the things that you're attached to, the garbage, the dead weight, well, that's going to burn up and you're going to be left naked and wanting. And I guess then there is the idea, well, then if you do associate and derive your meaning from from the dross, from the stuff rather that would be burnt up, from the chaff, then do you lose your identity? Do you lose your personhood as a result? This is described as annihilation. And the correct answer there is a definitive yes. Now, I don't know. I don't know if that's true because it does say every knee will bow and every tongue will confess, and that all things will be made new. Um, so, and I don't think that's done forcibly either, because there is this idea that some people might quote a scripture like this, like every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is king to the glory of God, kind of thing. This idea that it's coerced. I don't think, if anyone's interpreting it that way, I don't think that's the way it's supposed. That's not the spirit it's supposed to be received in, you know. And that goes back to something else I'm saying in my video about Jesus Christ saying, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. Uh, there is no way to the Father except through me." You know, and it comes down to well, who is he? Who is Jesus? Who is this door? Jesus says, "I am the door." What is the nature of this door? Who can access it? And the answer to that question isn't it's the people with the correct doctrine. That's not the answer to the question, you know. Um, and again, coming back to this idea, because I might have dropped it, I don't remember where I went with it. That the false prophets, the bearing of good fruit, it's the nature of the fruit. What was I saying there? Yeah, because people will say, "Oh, if you've got bad doctrine, um, like, and if you've got bad doctrine and you do bad things, then that explains it." A explains B. The bad doctrine explains the bad behavior. I don't know about that. I mean, it can be that. It can certainly warp your perceptions. It can certainly make you a less attractive person if you've got some, uh, you know, dodgy doctrines that kind of ruffle feathers. That can be a thing. But I don't necessarily think that bad doctrine in Christianity is making people produce bad fruit. I'm more inclined to believe that um, there's deeper there's deeper musings, there's deeper things working in your heart that are going to produce certain fruits. I mean, you could have it mapped out perfectly fine. You could have the most correct doctrine. You could have the narrative sussed with crystal clarity, all mapped out, all perfect, all your resources in order, all your history, all your manuscripts. You get it. And you could be the worst person ever. You could go out there and get drunk and I don't know if you're Dexter Morgan, you go out there and murder a bunch of people. So that's a quite an extreme example, but you could have all these dark proclivities and have a perfect doctrine. A perfect doctrine isn't spiritual. There's nothing spiritual about facts. Is that true? Did I just say a sentence that I don't agree with? No, I think that's right. There's nothing spiritual about facts. There is no spiritual merit to fact. No, wait, I need to be careful here because Jesus did say, I am the truth. But you know what I'm saying? To that kind of academic, heady, philosophical musing, there is no depth of spirituality there. Let's say that. There's the vapors of spirituality there, but there's no depth. You can have completely correct doctrine. That's not spiritual because that is on this horizontal plane. Um, if you want to be spiritual, then that is a vertical, um, mystical, experiential, deeply spiritual thing. That's personal between you and God. That's that unity coming in, and that's you allowing yourself to be driven by the renewing of your mind. Therein is um, is life. What is life? Um, outside of that, it's not a waste of time. Like it's not a waste of time to pick through doctrine. I think it can be uh, quite a good thing to do. Particularly if people want to pick out, love the Lord your God with all your mind. Like they might think, well, if I'm loving God with all my mind, then I might as well apply my intellect to understand what's actually being said. So there's some merit to that, I suppose, and it can be fun to do that. And I'm not saying that I want to take away anyone's fun. I'm just saying that it's not the be all and end all, you know, which was a lesson to me. That was news to me a few years ago because I thought it was about believing the right stuff because that made sense to me. It's like, oh, you got to get it right down. You gotta know it all. And if you get something wrong, God's going to burn you in hell for eternity. I like this. I like to look at Lovecraft's horror underneath the universe, but change it from horror to God's love and compassion. Absolutely correct. I think, we tell ourselves this horrible horror story about hell and about, you know, the billions of people that are going to suffer. And it leads to asking questions like, are babies going to burn in hell forever? What? Like, what a ridiculous thing to think. And there's no excusing it. If there's someone out there that thinks God is burning babies in hell, this Dante's Inferno, this is it John Milton, Paradise Lost, this idea, this folklore that's come out of Christianity that didn't really originate in Christianity. It just sort of tagged itself on like a stalagmite or stalactite. All this baggage got added to it until we've got this big, gnarled, ugly feature called hell that isn't really part of the original narrative. It's just this ugly thing that's in this dark cave of the wrong direction. You know what I mean? And that's again coming back to where the Enlightenment can take us sometimes. Not to be critical of the Enlightenment and all the goodness that it provided, but sometimes it's good to go back into a little bit of romanticism and see things a little less. I don't want to say less rationally, but less inclined towards uh, reason alone to the exclusion of experience. Because that was a whole thing, wasn't it? Um, this dependence on reason, and then you have your empiricists who are more into empiricism. I've kind of stepped out of my depth, but yeah, it's too late. It's 3 a.m. Give me a break. Give me a break. But yes, certainly I do believe more in this enchanted, beautiful existence, um, the substrate of which is a loving God. Um, the idea that sin separates us from God, I think, is a bad sentence. I don't think that quite makes sense, because if we live, move, and have our being in God, if we go into Hades and yet there's no separation from his spirit, Psalm 137, then it's not so much that sin separates us from God. The scripture says it creates enmity in our minds. It darkens our minds. It produces a darkness that blinds us from the truth. Christ says the kingdom of heaven is within you, and to know thyself, to know yourself. There's a there's an access into spirit, into God, into all the goodness. It's built in, and it takes a certain rumination, a certain prayerfulness, or meditation on the spirit to access this wonderful truth that we're not so far away from God, and that He's not necessarily going to give up on us, um, even though we should, grow weary. Okay, let's see. May I ask you something here? It's an odd question. You seem knowledgeable. I'm confused about something. Would like your thoughts. Yep. Please ask something. I'd be happy to attempt an answer. Um, so yeah, how far along am I in this video that's uploading? Oh, is it uploaded now? Or did I accidentally cancel the upload? I think it's probably uploaded because it wasn't going to take too long. Yeah, it's just processing now. Yeah, something else, like my other video about the poltergeist of Paslig. Um, my two friends recorded strange goings ons in their property, and I was skeptical at first because I was wondering, could this really be happening? Or is there another explanation because there's a dog in the house? Is it the dog that knocked stuff over and moved it around? But um, it turns out, as far as they're concerned, that wasn't the case at all. So, yeah, it's a strange one. Let me see this. Who was Asherah? What was the connection with Asherah and Yahweh? Thank you. I'm not just going to jump onto Google here, don't worry. Asherah. No, I'm going to have to look into that one for you. And that's something that would require more study from me. I'm not too familiar with Asherah, this mother goddess who appears in a number of ancient sources. She appears in the Akkadian writings. I don't know if you knew that, she does. And in Hittite as well. Look at that. Yeah, so it seems like quite a pervasive, quite a ubiquitous deity. Queen consort of the Sumerian god Anu, the oldest deities in their respective pantheons. as well as Yahweh, the God of Israel and Judah. That's really fascinating. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. No, I'm not someone that's well versed in a lot of these old gods. Like sometimes I'll delve into some ancient Greek and stuff like that, but I'm not too familiar with that. That is very fascinating, though. I'm quite interested by all these old ones. Um, there's people who talk about Nephilim and um, old deities. If you look at the Book of Enoch, there's writings in there about fallen angels. And quite interestingly, the lead demon in the Book of Enoch is called Godiel, which has made some people uh, turn away from using the name God to describe the Father, because they believe when you say God, you're saying Satan, basically, because this angel was called Godiel. But I don't know about all that. Um, there is this other idea, um, in ancient depictions, you'll see uh, it's almost like a dragon or a serpent or something like that, that's sort of enshrined. And I forget all the connections now, because this was one night when I was falling asleep listening to Joe Rogan, but some expert was on, and if I find the video, I'll put it in a description. And he was saying how it was almost like more advanced civilizations would seed lesser advanced civilizations in different places, and this happened in the Amazon. So they're discovering settlements in the Amazon, which would have been, uh, you know, in their time, bustling cities, little hives of um, societies, little economies, and they think that these were planted by just these more advanced and technologically savvy people. Sort of like the opening sequence of Prometheus, when you see that engineer, um, disintegrate his body into the earth, which then seeds the earth. It's a similar idea, isn't it? Kind of. Not really. It's so sorry, let me see here. It seems a bit Gnostic dualism. I think that God can manifest as male female as well, which is cool. It's going to be sorry. I'm sorry to this knowledge as well. Oh no, 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 not at all, not at all. I think it's nice to have a community that can share in these things. I do thank you very much for commenting tonight, because I don't know if I've ever seen you guys before, so it's nice to have you on and to have you commenting. Um, yeah, I think God can manifest in many ways. I think He does. You know, um, there's certainly a lot of peculiar stories in the scriptures about strange modes of communication. Now, I don't know if it was God speaking through the donkey, but I'm sure there was a donkey that communicated with. Let me get it right here. Uh, blah, 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 blah. It's in Numbers. Balaam. Yeah. What have I done to you that you have struck me these 3 times? Yeah. I would take those kinds of stories as your allegory, your rich Hebraic metaphor. Not necessarily, though. I mean, I'm sure there are instances where people have sensed communication from animals, and maybe this is just an embellishment there. But we all know, that our animals can communicate with us certain needs and wants and desires. So certainly, if you struck a dog, it would look at you with those eyes, those accusing eyes. I'm sure that's not dissimilar to how a donkey would respond to you. Um, so yeah, the video I put up now is loading. It's actually quite similar to this live stream that I'm doing now, actually. So I don't know. I might leave this live stream up for a little while, but the other video kind of covers things in a bit more detail, maybe. Let me see here. I took some notes. Um, let's see. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's me covered everything that I was gonna cover here tonight. So I guess the big takeaway from me tonight is just this idea that, and actually, um, what Mirrors contributed as well here. The idea that at the bottom and at the top and all around, there is this love, there is this God that genuinely cares for us. I think it's a very powerful thing to take to heart that there is a God that genuinely cares for us, because that can be a scary notion, and it can be one that it seems almost like, what am I actually saying when I say that? You know, that God genuinely cares about us. I just think that that's the way the universe is. I know that there's illness and disease and that there's death in the world, and that's just part of this ecology, this world, this the way things are. You know, we live on a planet with gravity. We have these biological bodies to interact with the world, and sometimes they stop working. But ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, um, it's a process. It's educational. It's about learning. It's about navigating suffering. I think there's a real richness to be taken away from this experience, and it's one that um, we're all very fortunate to participate in. And I know I wouldn't trade it. If I had the chance just to pop into existence in some heavenly realm, or come into this confusing mess that is the world, I think I would opt for the confusing mess that is the world. I think it's a much more interesting experience to have this perception of limited knowledge. It's so much more exciting. There's a, I don't know if you call him a philosopher or maybe a new age thinker, Alan Watts, and he describes how, if there was a God, if I was God, I think it might be phrased like that, then I would imagine an existence where I could forget that I was God, you know, and that there's all these different expressions of me, and we're all doing these new things, these novel things. We're learning, and we're growing, and we're processing, and to an extent, uh, I can see this where he's coming from there, and I can see a connection with this idea of unity in spirit and in Christianity, where we are all part of the one, you know, and in some sense there is that divine spark in all of us, and I'm pretty sure God has the capacity to to look through my eyes and to speak through my mouth, and I think that's I think that's an incredible thing, because it's not just me, it's you too. Uh, okay, so I think I'll leave it there. Thank you for watching, and thank you so much for your prayers. I don't know you I don't know you two that well, or you three that well, and the other person that tuned in. I don't know who you guys are exactly, but I will pray for you too. I'll keep you in my thoughts, and I wish you all the best. So thanks for watching, and good night.